Regularly scheduled programs will not be seen tonight so that we may bring you the NFL live and in color.
Get it in here! I got one thing to say. This is when the big dogs come out. Damn right. Can't roll the big dogs. Stay on the board.
Let's knock them on their backs, butt them in the mouth, knock their ass in the dirt. That's what we got to do.
Hey, baby! We're going to be here all day, baby! I like this kind of party. I like this kind of party, baby.
His method is not Grand Prix, but demolition derby.
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
Basically a Football Show, week 3 in the National Football League. Week 4 in college. We're going to start in the NFL because, we like to alternate. We like to give equal time.
That, and we're just completely aware of what's going on in the NFL, right down to the last yard, everything.
I think we talked last week after week 2 that you kept saying, oh, you hate week 2 because, you overreact week 1 and then you overreact in week 2, so maybe you really don't know anything. After the results of this week 3, we know even less than we did last week, I think.
Yeah, I've changed my position. Last week I hated week 2 more than week 1. This week I hate week 3 more than week 2 or week 1. I don't even know what to say at this point. I really don't.
As far as I can tell, out of the 32 teams in the National Football League, there is only one team I know 100% about, and I'm confident in saying this. The New England Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl. To see what they did on Thursday night with Jacoby Brissett and the way the defense stepped up and shut down a supposed division contender in the Houston Texans.
I'll take it one step further. I think we know two things. We know that the Patriots are very, very good, and I'm going to go and change my mind from the first 3 weeks of the season and say the Broncos, I think, are really good too.
On the other side of it, though, how disappointed are you with the Texans in that performance?
Well, that's the thing with New England this year is that we knew the offense was going to be good. It always is because you got Tom Brady, and that makes your offense 40% better no matter who else is around you. Now the Patriots' defense is really good too. I'm not surprised the Patriots won the game because nothing they do surprises me anymore. But to shut out the Texans like that, where are we at on the Texans? I'm not sure they're good.
I think Houston is the top of that division still, just based on what we've seen. But they're not a game breaker. They're a low-rent version of the Kansas City Chiefs.
I thought maybe that with Osweiler, again, not going to be a guy that's going to put up huge numbers, but maybe enough of a difference at quarterback where they might be the clear class of that division. Now we're right back to where we were last year. It's just going to be whoever survives at the end with 8 or 9 wins is just going to win that thing.
Yeah. Let's go over to Sunday, and a surprising one in Buffalo. The Cardinals go in and lay an absolute egg to the Bills. I don't really know what team I'm supposed to expect with the Cardinals. Now, again, it's a Western team going across the country for an early start time that always throws teams off. But they look terrible.
Yeah, the Cardinals, I'm not ready to give up on them just yet because it was a Western team going east, and strange things happen when teams have to do that, but the thing that surprised me the most about this game, maybe not so much that the Bills won, but that they scored 33 points on what's supposed to be a good Cardinals defense. So I'm not ready to give up on the Cardinals just yet, and believe me, I'm nowhere near getting on the Bills bandwagon after this. This was just one of those things. I'm not ready to say that, hey, they might be okay after all, because I don't think they're going to be.
The Cardinals are a team that the jury's still out on, definitely, at least from my end of things.
I'm not ready to give up on them yet, but another week or two like this, and I'm going to have to take them off my list.
The Raiders, I tell you what, against the Titans. The Titans have played a lot of close games so far this season. I mean, they've been in the games. No points scored in the second half. A very low-scoring 17-10 win for the Raiders. I got no thoughts on the Raiders either. I mean, they're a team that's slightly disappointing based on how people thought they would have come out of the gate, especially with the teams they played.
What I know about the Raiders is what I heard them talking about during the game is that they have the worst defense in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Which surprised me a little bit, but what does that say about the Titans? Titans at home playing the worst defense in the league can only put 10 points on the board.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say that maybe maybe they go back to being my irrational confidence team, but I don't think so. But could they be the pesky team that we thought the Jaguars might be this year? Who knows? But I'm glad to see the Raiders get the win. I think they're going to be okay. And as you see more and more of the AFC, you realize it's not going to take a whole lot to get into one of those spots past the Broncos and Patriots, so they'll be fine.
I want to add one more thing that we do know about. The Browns are still the Browns, in case you're curious. Cody Kessler making his first start for the Browns. Things looked like they were on the up and up. The Browns had got them in position to kick a game-winning field goal at the end of regulation. They miss it. The Dolphins win in overtime. 0-3, the Browns are just...
A lot of the talk around here is that they're a young team, and you're seeing them make baby steps with games like this. I'm looking at it going, I just don't think they're very good. Yeah. I don't see a team that's making young mistakes.
Cody Kessler in his first start, 21-33, 244. No interceptions.
Not bad.
Not too bad of a start for the USC quarterback, but two teams that I can preface by saying, what the hell is up with the blank? The Ravens and the Jaguars. Ravens are 3-0. The Jags are 0-3. The Jags have one of the worst defenses in the league as well. Jacksonville was supposed to be good. The defense was supposed to be their highlight, and the Ravens were supposed to be garbage. What is happening?
I thought the Ravens would be improved this year. I think they are a little bit, but you got to look at who they've played too.
Sure, definitely.
They're 3-0, but then again, wins are wins in the NFL. At the end of the season, if you've got 12 wins, they don't go, well, they were against so-and-so, so they don't count. Yeah. So I wouldn't get too terribly excited, Baltimore, but by the same token, all you need is maybe 6 more wins now out of the last 13, so you can go 6-7 the rest of the way, and you're probably still going to be in playoff contention.
Yeah,
I mean, they go anywhere.
They're definitely the Bills and Dolphins of years past.
Yes, that's a perfect assessment. I completely agree with that. And the Jaguars, I don't know what that illusion was that we saw in Week 1 against the Packers, but clearly it tricked a whole lot of people.
Have you seen enough from Blake Bortles to know whether or not he's good?
You know, it's so hard to tell because they don't have really a lot of offensive weapons, but I've heard it on Bill Simmons' podcast. I've heard it a lot of different places. The numbers he puts up, a lot of times are garbage time numbers, so you get tricked into thinking maybe he's a little bit better than he actually is.
Gus Bradley was supposed to be this defensive wizard, and the Jags were starting to turn around. And in his first 50 games, I think they said he's like 12-38.
Yeah, something like that.
First 50 games,
yeah,
which isn't stellar. But is that a fact of what the Jaguars have had, or does that make him not as good of a coach as we might think?
You don't know because they always seem to show signs where you look at them and you go, okay, they're not winning, but you can see this happening. But we've been saying that for 4 years about this team now, and they're still showing signs, but nothing's still happening. At some point, you have to say, okay, maybe this guy's not the answer. We're seeing the signs. We're not seeing any of the results that come with it. And normally when a team is ascending, you start seeing wins to come along with the signs, and they're just bad. There's no other way to put it.
Packers-Lions. Packers looked really good early. 31-10 at halftime. And then they score 3 points in the second half, and it's a 7-point game at the end of it all. Where did the Packers go in the second half? I saw some discussion where it's like, the Packers do this sometimes where they explode, and then they just kind of disappear for stretches, and games get tighter than they should, and they're able to hold on to things at the end, but they're never able to really put teams away like they used to be able to anymore.
There's something wrong with that offense. They look great 1 minute, and the next, Aaron Rodgers was just lights out in the first half. In the second half, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I'm going to blame it on Mike McCarthy. I think he's the problem, and I don't think he's a good coach. He's pulling a Mike Keenan or a John Tortorella to use a hockey reference. He is writing one Super Bowl win to a coaching career that he probably doesn't deserve at this point. That's my feeling on it. I think he's a bad coach, and they've got too much talent to have these kind of problems.
The hot take machine of Fox Sports 1. They did the brilliant thing of putting Colin Cowherd on the Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp show.
Oh, my God.
On Monday. And Skip Bayless and Cowherd were going back and forth and just, maybe Aaron Rodgers isn't that good. I've said it all along. He's not an elite quarterback anymore. Or, and when he came into the league, it was just Brady and Manning and who else? Now there's all these great quarterbacks, and he's not the top of the heap anymore.
He sure looked good to me in the first half, and I don't know that you can go out and be accidentally that good as often as he's good when he's good.
Yeah.
He's also admitted, too, he's even said that, look, I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, not being as disciplined as he should be, but I really do. I think I said it last year. I'm going to say it again. I don't think McCarthy's a good coach, and it might be time to take a look at somebody else to bring in there because this team has just got too much talent, especially on offense, to be as wildly inconsistent as they are. And to me, that's coaching at that point.
Probably the biggest AFC game on the schedule this week. With the Broncos and the Bengals, were the Broncos for real going on the road? Could they finally pull it out? Yeah. Trevor Siemian, 22 of 35 or 23 of 35, 312 and 4 touchdown passes. 3-0 the Broncos with a win over the Bengals.
I think, and here's my hot take, maybe not quite a hot take, but a take that I may be looking at down the road and going, wow, I was dumb to say that, but right now, If Simeon doesn't turn into a pumpkin at some point during the season, I think this Broncos team is better than it was last year.
It's not like the Broncos are doing this completely on the ground. This game was won on the back of Trevor Simeon.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how he's kind of come into that role. And the Broncos got pretty lucky with this little turn of luck with the quarterbacks.
I think the Broncos are way better than I thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bengals, they've just had some tough luck. They've had a really rough schedule to start the season, and I think they'll be okay.
When you play your first 3 games are the Jets, Steelers, and Broncos,
yeah,
that's a tough opening stretch. Another team that is just I don't know what to make of them, and it's surprising the hell out of me. The Minnesota Vikings are 3-0, and dare I say Sam Bradford looks very good for the Vikings.
Well,
especially behind. I mean, that defense has done some wonders. They shut down the Panthers. 8 sacks on Cam Newton.
Wow.
In this game for the Vikings defense.
Wow.
Just swarming. And so the defense looks great. Sam Bradford looks pretty good. 18-28, 171, not lighting the world on fire, but good enough behind that defense. They're the NFC's Broncos.
That defense is really good in Minnesota. I think the Panthers are probably going to end up suffering the post-Super Bowl slump that the loser seems to suffer a lot in the NFL. Yeah. And Bradford, again, while he's not Brady or Rodgers, who I still think's elite, Skip and Colin, sorry, he's getting the job done. And like you said, Broncos of the NFC maybe, but 3-0, a game ahead of the Packers, and they've got one in their pocket against the Packers, so they're in good shape.
Redskins and Giants, the NFC East is dumb. I hate it. I was so confident the Giants were going to win this game, and it looked like they were going to. They were up pretty decently early, and then Eli just kind of broke down in the second half. A couple key interceptions late as Kirk Cousins and the Redskins lead things back for a 29-27 win. Really kind of a good game, just a back and forth. But this is how all these top games have been. Whether it was the Giants and the Cowboys was much like this game where it was back and forth, and Cowboys-Redskins was back and forth, and then the Cowboys finally won at the end. Yeah. And you have this game where it's back and forth, and the Redskins come away with it at the end. That's that division this year.
That's because you've got a division full of 8-8 teams that all play each other, so they're all going to play very competitive games, and you're right. At the end of the day, we'll see what happens.
What about the other team that's in first place in the NFC East? The team with the highest scoring output in the league. The team with the best point differential in the league through 3 games. The Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
The Eagles just manhandled the Steelers 34-3. The Steelers looked not great, but the Eagles looked fantastic.
Again, not too surprised that they won. A little bit surprised they beat the Steelers, but to just pound them like that I wasn't expecting at all. And they're now 3-0. You've got to say they're the best team in that division at this point, right?
From what we've seen, I mean, I thought it was going to be the Giants for that passing game, but you saw their flaws against Washington. And Carson Wentz, what is that, another 300-yard game for him, a couple touchdowns? Not bad.
Well, the knock on him, if you remember going back to the draft, was that because he came from North Dakota, whichever one it is, North Dakota State, that, Division II quarterback, maybe not ready, but he was the guy between him and Goff. Wentz was the guy that was the prototypical NFL quarterback, had the size, played in the pro-style offense, and maybe it's time to start looking past where they went to college and more about how good they are, because it's pretty clear at this point that of the two, I would rather have Wentz than Goff. I don't know if Goff's even taken a snap yet, has he?
No, but he's been upgraded to second string, so he gets to wear his pads.
Yeah, okay. And Carson Wentz is 3-0 and just beat probably one of the better teams in the AFC.
How much better are the Eagles for simply just not having Chip Kelly at the helm of that thing and kind of poisoning the well?
Apparently a lot better, especially when you look at the 49ers in comparison, who I thought maybe might be interesting this year because of Chip Kelly, and turns out, no, they're still pretty bad. So yeah. I think it's the Eagles are, I think, the biggest surprise in the league to me at this point. I had the Eagles in last place in that division starting the season.
We mentioned Chip Kelly and his 49ers. They lose again on the road, 37-18 to the Seahawks. Seahawks finally get some offense going, but there's something wrong with them. They are off. They are not the Seahawks that we've come to know over the last few years.
Well, you look at the offensive struggles they had in the first 2 weeks of the season. Yeah, they scored 37, but they did it against the 49ers team that you look at now and go, how in the world did they ever beat the Rams in the first week of the year? I have not seen much of the Seahawks, so I can't say, but I know that their offense, from what I've read, is having some issues. And they're not quite the same, but we've been here going into week 4 with the Seahawks 3-4 years now. I hope something's wrong with them. I hope they become terrible, but I'm not going to say that just yet.
But by the way, Greg, did you say Rams?
I did.
Did you say first place, Los Angeles
Hey.
Rams? Look at that. Not only did the Rams score an offensive touchdown, not only did the Rams score a passing offensive touchdown, they scored like 5 offensive touchdowns in this game.
I saw
35-32 win over the Bucks.
I saw that they scored 37 points, and I said somebody put the wrong score up.
No, sir. Case Keenum, he threw 2 touchdown passes early, one to the Rams and one to the Buccaneers, but, you know, take that off the table. But the offense looked good. Again, the defense probably needs a little bit more work, but they were strong through this game. And because of the win over the Seahawks, they're both 2-1, but the Rams, first place in the NFC West after 3 weeks.
Here's the thing with the Rams. I think the Rams are the perfect example of why you never want to overreact too much in week 1. I still think that they are the team that is going to be – they are more than capable of getting 9 wins and making the playoffs this year. You know, we're not ready to totally get on board and go, hey, they're going to go 12-4 and all that, like Jeff Fisher thinks. But they're going to be okay, I think. The defense will get better. Todd Gurley is a good running back, and all you've got to do is get a quarterback behind center that's not going to kill you, and they're capable of winning 9 games. And they're 2-1, which I think we had them start the season at 1-2. So they're already in better shape than we thought they were going to be.
Definitely. And, I mean, they get a big game this weekend when they go on the road to Arizona.
I think the Rams, they go into Arizona this week and win that game. That could finish off the Cardinals early, especially if the Seahawks keep winning. All of a sudden, the Cardinals are in 3rd place. They're going to be 2 games out.
That's a huge matchup for both those teams. From my new team, which is looking great, to my old team, which pulled it out, but I was ready to just pack that team away and forget about them for the rest of my life. The Indianapolis Colts, they pull one out late against the Chargers, 26-22.
2 bad teams. I mean, the Colts might be in it because of the division they're in, but other than that, not a lot to see here. 2 teams with good quarterbacks, not a whole lot else.
Jets and Chiefs, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, 6 interceptions for the Chiefs.
Is that what we're calling him now, Ryan Fitzpatrick? I like that.
Fitzpatrick, Six-Pick Trick, whatever you want to call him. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 6 interceptions against this Chiefs defense.
Wow.
And the Chiefs pretty much shut down the Jets in a 24-3 win.
It makes it easy when the other team gives you the ball 6 times. You almost have to win those games, and if you don't, then wow. But I think the Jets, I'm not ready to bury them just yet. This was just one of those fluky things, I think.
Yeah, 6 interceptions and also 2 lost fumbles. So 8 turnovers by the Jets.
You know, you might be a little concerned that the Chiefs were only able to turn that into 24 points, too.
Sunday night, Cowboys-Bears. Cowboys win 31-17. Newsflash, Bears are bad. Brian Hoyer's still bad. Ezekiel Elliott, with his first big game as a pro, 30 carries, 140 yards. A nice game for the Cowboys all in all. Dak Prescott does pretty well and gets them their second win of the season. But it's against the Bears, and the Bears are definitely going to be at the bottom. They're going to be fighting for that first overall pick when everything's said and done at the end of this, I think.
Bears-Browns battling it out for the rights to whoever emerges as the number 1 pick this year.
Lamar Jackson?
Oh, that'd be interesting. I don't know what to make of the Cowboys yet. They're 2-1, which is, they're in better shape than they were last year, right?
The Cowboys, yeah.
Yeah, so, they're hanging tough. And I think Prescott's going to be okay.
This is what they needed to have after the last couple of years where you see Romo goes down and that's it. Yeah. But now they have Prescott in there and he's good. And he's not lighting the world on fire or anything like that, but he just needs to do enough. And they're doing enough to stay on pace with the other teams in that division.
Yep.
The Eagles are 3-0, obviously ahead of everybody else, but they're 2-1. Giants are 2-1. Redskins are 1-2. Everybody, they're staying tight enough to keep themselves into contention. Monday night, what the hell is up with the Falcons? They're just scoring all the points so far this season. And the Saints putting up points again like the Saints used to be able to do. Drew Brees, 376 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and they're still 0-3.
Still 0-3. And remember how impenetrable the Superdome used to be?
Yep.
Now 0-2 at home.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year, too. We were talking about, well, they'll be okay once they get home, and they started losing games at home, and it was like, well, that's that. They're not good anymore.
The mystique of the Saints is over. They're back to being – they're not all the way back to being the Aaron Brooks Saints.
No, but they're headed in that direction.
Yeah, as soon as Drew Brees leaves, man, that team's going to go right down the hole. But that's your scores of week 1. Division leaders through 3 weeks. Patriots, obviously with a 2-game lead in the AFC East. Baltimore with a game lead over Pittsburgh. Houston game lead over the rest of that trash heap in the South. And the Broncos, surprising everybody, 3-0 still. Eagles 3-0, Vikings 3-0, Falcons 2-1, and the Los Angeles Rams with the tiebreaker 2-1 on top of the National Football Conference West. College football week 4. Not a whole lot of movement at the top. Things stayed pretty stable, but some big wins for a couple teams, some big losses for middle-ranging teams, and one big one that we'll get to for a team that fell out of the rankings, and a team that we were high on to start the season, and you all know who we're talking about. It's another SEC team with a tiger mascot. That one we did last year. But we'll start at the top. Number 1 this week, as it was a week ago, it has been pretty much all season. Alabama, number 1 in the country. They beat Nick Saban University, Kent State, with a 48-0 drubbing. 50 first place votes for the Tide. Nothing changing there. Ohio State had a bye week. They still get 4 first place votes in second. Louisville, they don't lose their look-ahead game. They beat up Marshall pretty good, 59-28. 6 first place votes to stay at number 3. Michigan has no trouble with Penn State. They stay at 4.
Penn State's another team I've got to retract. They're not good either. I thought they might be halfway decent this year. They're not good.
Mm-hmm. Two big ones upcoming for those 2 schools is Louisville, number 3, will be on the road at number 5, Clemson. That'll be a huge one.
Yeah.
Number 4, Michigan, will be on the road at new number 8, Wisconsin. Get to in a second. Clemson doesn't move. They beat Georgia Tech. I thought that could have been a trip up for them. They handled it pretty well. Houston beats up Texas State at 6. Number 7, Stanford Cardinal. They were in trouble for a little bit in this game. It was against UCLA. A very grinded out, a very tight football game. Tighter than any of the Stanford UCLA games have been in the last few years. And UCLA was leading late. Stanford gets the one quick touchdown, and I think it was a fumble return for a touchdown right after to make the score bigger than the game actually was, and they win 22-13. UCLA kept it close, but Stanford, again, like we talked about last week, just that one step above pretty much every other team in the Pac-12.
Yeah, this one had me a little nervous with Stanford early, but they pulled it out in the end, and that's what you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Christian McCaffrey was bottled up pretty well in this one, but again, Stanford, they can just grind it out with you, and they did that to UCLA. Big, as they say, kind of a backdoor cover for Stanford. Really, it was tight, and people were happy. Stanford still won the game. It was tight, and then they blew it away with that second one. So, interesting little thing. But as I said, number 8 in the country now, your Wisconsin Badgers. They beat up the previous number 8 and now number 17, Michigan State. And not only did they beat them up, they beat them up pretty good. We had questions about Wisconsin, whether they were legit or not. Yeah, they beat LSU in week 1, but as we've seen, LSU is not what we thought they were. Wisconsin's even changed quarterbacks. The quarterback that beat LSU, Bart Houston, was not the starter. The starter now is Hornibrook. And they went on the road to Michigan State, and they beat up the Spartans. Just really, really took it to them. 30-6. It wasn't ever really that close. And Wisconsin was for real, I think. They showed me something.
I mean, if you weren't buying into them before, you should now, because Michigan State, they looked pretty good to start the season, and I'm surprised by this. Wisconsin just went in and manhandled them in East Lansing, which isn't easy to do. So I think the Wisconsin Badgers, they might be the surprise team of the Big Ten this year.
Mm-hmm. Three interceptions for the Michigan quarterback, and that's the thing, is Wisconsin, traditionally a running team, they did it through the air on this day, and the defense was very, very good. So Wisconsin has a lot of things working for them. I like what I see. Again, they have a rough stretch of things right now. They had a tough opening game with LSU. Did they pull that one out? A couple of easy ones. Still don't know what they are. They beat Michigan State. Great. But they're at Michigan State, at Michigan, home against Ohio State, this 3-game stretch. So they got through the first test on the road at Michigan State, 30-6. At Michigan next week, tough to say. At home against Ohio State, tougher to say. And they still get Nebraska later in the year, too. So the tests are not done for this Wisconsin team. They got the hard schedule this year.
I will say that Wisconsin, every few years, rises up and knocks Ohio State out of something, and this might be the year they do that. But, this is going to tell the tale with the Badgers. They beat Michigan, and you know what? If they can go 1-1 out of those games, I think they'll be all right. But, it's going to be – it doesn't get any easier for them, but we'll know for sure in 2 weeks where they are.
Yeah, no, like I said, every once in a while with the way these cross-divisional matchups work, some teams just get screwed when it comes to the schedule.
Yeah.
And it looks like Wisconsin's that team. To have those 3 teams as your first 3 conference games, that's tough. at least like spread them out or something. But back to back to back like that, that's not fair to the Badgers.
Well,
that'll be a hurt for them. We'll see how they pull that out. But again, very impressed by what I saw by Wisconsin this week. Also moving up and still impressing me week after week after week. Texas A&M jumps up to number 9 from 10. They beat number 17 Arkansas in the Cowboy Stadium. That A&M front seven is lethal. That defensive line can really get into the backfield. And Baker Mayfield looks pretty confident, or not Baker Mayfield, Trevor Knight, mixing up my former Oklahoma quarterbacks. But Trevor Knight looks great in that A&M offense, and they can score quickly, and they can score in bunches, and pair that with that ferocious front seven on defense. I like what I've seen from A&M so far. Are they the team that could challenge Alabama in the West?
No.
No? I don't think so?
Maybe.
No, I agree. I like what I've seen, but I don't think they're up to Alabama's level quite yet.
Yeah, they look good. We liked them going in. We said they weren't going to be an easy out for anybody. They're outperforming what I expected out of them so far this year. Nice win, too. Arkansas is not a bad team.
No, and that was one that got away from them late, too. Arkansas was very tight in this game for the most part. But one of those series of things that happens late and A&M pulls away. A fumble recovery on like the 17 that gets run in. It's too bad for Arkansas. It could have looked better, but again, A&M, I still think A&M's very, very good, and they looked it. Washington, they moved down one spot, but those Huskies, they're still 4-0. They survive what was going to be they could have been looking ahead to Stanford. I said last week, Tucson's a tough place to play. They're playing at Tucson at night. They had the opportunity to kind of close this thing out late. Weren't able to do it. Arizona stayed with it. They got into overtime, and Washington's able to pull that one out, 35-28 over the Wildcats. So Washington survived. They got through the first 4 weeks. They're 4-0. Everyone's thinking highly of them. They're number 10 in the country, and now is where they get to show us, like Wisconsin had the chance to. This is where they can show us if all the preseason hype is worth it when they host number 7 Stanford on Friday up in Seattle. Friday night game in Seattle, Washington, Stanford, 10-7. That'll be the first big test for Chris Peterson and the Huskies.
That's pretty much it, yeah. I mean, I like the win over Arizona. We kept saying with Washington, we got to see what they can do when they play somebody. They went out and played somebody, got a win on the road. I would have liked it a little better if they had made it a little easier on themselves, but they're still 4-0. But like you said, now we get to really see what they're made of. I tell you what, though, I like Washington in this game against Stanford coming up on Friday.
Yeah, Stanford, if Washington can hold Stanford like UCLA did, and I think Washington's better on offense than UCLA has been, this is a very intriguing game. This will be a test for both sides for Washington to show us if they're for real or not, and for Stanford to establish themselves as, no, we are the top dog in the Pac-12. You can stay down where you are, Washington. And I mean, this is going to be the real test because Oregon's fallen off in the North. Some teams like Cal can score a whole bunch of points. Washington State can score a whole bunch of points. But the good teams in the Pac, really in the Pac-12 as a whole, are Washington and Stanford. And this is the thing that'll decide, a lot of what happens down the stretch here in the Pac-12.
Yep.
So big game for both sides there. That'll be it. If you're busy on Friday night, make time to watch this one. It'll be probably the most important Pac-12 game you watch all season.
It's going to be a good one. I like the Huskies. Just saying it now.
I still find it tough to stray away from Stanford because of it's one of those things like we say with Alabama. You go, you're the top dog until somebody knocks you off. But a lot of people on the Washington hype train, as we've seen with UCLA, I'm not a big fan of Pac-12 hype trains on the whole. Number 11 this week is the Tennessee Volunteers with a big win at home over Florida. They break, a 12-year losing streak against the Gators?
Something like that. And unfortunately, they wore the ugliest damn uniforms they could come up with to do it, so we'll probably see them again now.
Yeah. Yeah, the rocky top, smoky, gray uniforms.
I get it. You want to do a thing that is a nod to your mascot, Smokey, but Smokey doesn't look a thing like that. I don't know. All right, okay, but whatever. Yeah. Maybe they meant Smoky Mountains. I don't know. Whatever the case, it was ugly. I do know that.
Yeah, the Vols were down big at halftime, 21-3 at half. And they, I think they said it's the biggest comeback they've had in SEC history.
Wow.
For Tennessee, it's the biggest comeback in some sort of fashion for the Volunteers. 18-point comeback. They end up beating Florida with a 21-point fourth quarter, 38-28. The Volunteers, despite they've been up and down, we don't know what to make too much of them. They're still 4-0. They've won the games, and now that they're in the SEC play, they get this big win against Florida, exercise a little bit of demons. And with how things have been playing out in the Eastern Division, with Georgia losing, and obviously they beat Florida here, and Missouri isn't up to their what they've been the last few years. Tennessee looks on track to be the team that's going to end up playing Alabama in the title game. I mean, they have to play them during the regular season at one point, but it looks like they're going to be in Atlanta with Alabama at the end of these things.
They look good, 4-0. We'll see where they go from here.
Yeah. Florida State beats up South Florida pretty well. They're number 12.
Are you a little concerned that Florida State gave up 35 points? Well, I mean, South Florida was at home, but still, I don't know. That bugs me a little bit.
I'm bugged by a lot by Florida State. I think that loss against Louisville is just going to stick in my mind with them all season. That they can be good, but they can also they have some issues. This is not Florida State teams that we've seen in the past. It's something new every week for them. Maybe their offense scores a lot of points here, but defense doesn't play so well. Against Louisville, they get thrashed all over the place. Against Ole Miss, they're down early, come back late. I'm not too sure what to make of Florida State on the whole, but they're still 3-1, 12 in the country. Good for them. I mean, they're playing for one of those other bowl games because they have the opportunity to maybe knock off Clemson later. Depending on what happens in this Louisville Clemson game on Saturday, but we'll see. Baylor's still 4-0. All credit to the new coaching staff there at Baylor for keeping that team together after what's transpired with them. They're up to number 13 in the country. A tough position to be in, but they're winning games. They're scoring points. They're doing what Baylor has done in the past. It's just kind of under a big dark cloud.
Right.
Miami doesn't play. They stay at 14. Nebraska moves up 5. Ole Miss. Here's your other ranked game of the week. Number 16, Ole Miss. They were they hosted number 12, Georgia. Georgia now falls down to number 25 as, again, Chad Kelly seems to be the only quarterback in the SEC. Ole Miss beats up Georgia pretty damn good in this game, 45-14. Chad Kelly, 18-24, 282 and 2 touchdowns. Despite the 2 losses to Florida State and to Alabama, Ole Miss is still a very, very good football team, despite anyone else would have you think based on the record or what you would know about Ole Miss in the past. Outside of that opening game that was kind of weird, and that Alabama game which they had a chance to win, Ole Miss is going to be right there with those. They'll probably end up as a top 10 team by the end of this if they can knock off, say, Texas A&M later in the season.
I think Georgia, we kind of been wondering all season, okay, is this the year? I don't think it is. I think that they're just not very, I don't say they're not good because they're pretty good, but It wasn't, I don't think it was Mark Richt was the whole problem there is what I'm saying. So, Bulldogs still down a level in the SEC. It's just the way it's going to be, I think. Yeah,
they dropped 13 spots to 25. They're the Oklahoma of the week, barely hanging on their rankings. But yeah, they need a full kind of refresh.
Yep.
I think Kirby Smart's a good coach coming over from that Nick Saban coaching tree, but they need some time to establish something new with the Georgia Bulldogs and kind of flush out the Mark Richt era completely before they can really take that next step. Utah, they move up to number 18, a 6-spot jump. They survive at home against USC, but good one for Utah, 4-0, number 18.
The Utes, 4-0, man.
They might be the team to beat in that Pac-12 South. Always a tough place to play up there in Salt Lake City, and they look much better than anything I've seen out of UCLA or either of the Arizona schools.
Well, let's talk a little bit too for just a second about the nice transition Utah has made into a power conference, and they've hung tough. I think they've done a good job. Yeah,
Kyle Whittingham has done a great job with that program. I really like his work there. 2 teams fall out of the rankings this week. Oklahoma, thankfully, finally go away. I don't want to see the Sooners ever again. But the other team is the LSU Tigers, and they're 2-2 on the season. Very disappointing. They fall out of the rankings. And LSU finally did what it probably had wanted to do for a little while, but just couldn't rightfully do it. Les Miles fired, as well as offensive coordinator Cam Cameron.
How long have they been trying to fire Les Miles?
Like I said, a long time.
I want to say since he took the job, basically.
Pretty much. I mean, he hasn't gotten them to an SEC championship game in 5 years. So a lot of his success, he's had success there, no doubt, at LSU, but A lot of that was in the early portions of his career there. Won that national championship, got to two national championship games. One of those championship games is against Alabama, which
was ridiculous.
One of the dumbest things I think we've ever seen ever. And that was the year that they played that 7-6 nonsense.
Right. Yep.
The game of the century, it was called. But the problem that you saw here in this game, and what was probably the reason, really what kind of emphasizes them, we need to get rid of this guy. Clock management has always been a problem with LSU, and to see the way that they acted at the end of that football game, to not run up to the football on every one of those plays, and then especially, you have 1 second. You know that after a penalty, that clock runs as soon as they say go. You need to be lined up. You need to be ready to snap the ball. As soon as the referee blows his whistle, that ball is coming off the ground. It's inexcusable that the game ended like that for them. And again, a perfect reason and kind of exemplary of what Les Miles' biggest problem was as a head coach in terms of clock management and tight games. There was no way that he was going to survive. Maybe they would have kept him on to the end of the season, but I think the other reason they do it now is, like I said, they wanted to fire him before, but the last couple of years he loses big and they think, oh, we've got to really fire this guy. And then he wins a few games. It's like, well, now he had a 9-win season. We can't go fire him now. And if you're LSU, you got to do it now. Like, do you have any kind of qualms about them firing him now?
Nope, not a bit.
Yeah,
I think what happened was inexcusable, and we've seen it so many times. I mean, sure, he's pulled off some miracles late in games, but we've also seen a lot of boneheaded stuff. And they've wanted to get rid of him for a while. I think that he provided. I mean, my God, you just can't let what happened happen in that game. You just can't do it as a coaching staff. And he did. And yeah, you know what? Goodbye. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a matter of time. I mean, is it weird to have him get fired in week 4? Sure, but I don't have any problem with it.
There's definitely a reason to fire him, and you saw it on Saturday. Now, as far as who they got to hire, their interim head coach, Ed Orgeron, who did a great job at USC the last couple of years.
Oh, no. Geez, he's in that spot again?
Yeah.
No.
And now he's going to rally the troops, and they're going to win like 10 games. Just watch.
Yep, and then he's going to end up, and then a big name's going to come along, and that'll be that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're LSU, like I said, I think they think that they're a much bigger program than they've been the last few years.
It's a big job. I think they can go out and get a big name if they want it. But poor Ed Orgeron, my goodness, really?
Yeah. Here's a question. Is it really a big job, or was it Nick Saban did a really good job, Les Miles inherited that and won a championship early, and then they're just kind of who they are outside of the Nick Saban and Les Miles championship?
Do I think it's a big job in the same sense as like Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, USC big? No, but it's right down below them. I mean, it's a. Are you going to get? Let me put it this way: if they open it up, you aren't going to see Urban Meyer. I'll say that now, and then you know what's going to happen. Don't you? Urban Meyer's going to go to LSU, but you're probably not.
Could you imagine Urban Meyer versus Nick Saban every year?
Other than the fact that I'm an Ohio State fan and I'd hate to see him go, I'd love to see it myself. But other than that,
yeah.
But I don't know that it's one of those that you're going to get like everybody in the world's going to be interested in it. Then again, it might be. I think it's up there. It's a top. Maybe not quite, like I said, quite at the very upper echelon of college football, but it's right there. It's a plum gig, but you got to be ready to walk into a pressure cooker. Just ask Les Miles. But I don't know. I like LSU, and he was just a frustrating guy to me. And I mean, I hate to see anybody lose their job, but then you always hear this argument. Well, they have families and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Screw that. They also make like $8 million a year. I'm not too worried about the Miles family being able to eat dinner next week. So I'm glad to see him go. That's what I'm trying to say.
How quickly does Les Miles get rehired once the offseason starts?
He'll probably get a job pretty easy, but it's not going to be – he's going to start working his way back down the ladder.
You think so?
Yeah,
so,
I do.
Because I think the question that a lot of people have based on what the situation looks like, and, you get the story this week that, the guy was probably punched in the face by a player. Does USC fire Clay Helton and hire Les Miles?
Right now or next year?
Next year.
Because
I don't think you fire Clay Helton right now. I think you got to let him play out the rest of the season.
It's an intriguing possibility, and I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. USC needs to – they haven't done really anything since Pete Carroll left, and you need to go out there and get the guy that's going to have the name that can get back the recruiting back to where it needs to be. Is Les Miles that guy? Maybe. I don't know. But he's an intriguing choice. I'll say that.
I'll tell you, it may be a little drier, but Southern California grass can taste just as good as it does in the South.
No humidity in the summer either.
It's very true. Very true.
All right.
I just a whole lot of ways to go with Les, and again, inexcusable the way they finished that game. And
we'll have to see as things go on, like as jobs start opening up, then it'll get really interesting because see, that's the thing though. He's got a track record, but I don't know that if Ohio State's job opened, I'd be like, I don't want him. It's weird. I don't know. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out with him.
Honestly, I think with the way that the program's gone, I think Les Miles going to USC would make a whole lot of sense because that's a program that they can't get that top guy anymore. Like if Urban Meyer was let go at Ohio State for some strange reason, he's not going to USC right off the bat. He has plenty of other places he could go, right?
Well, I don't know. See, I think USC is right up there with one of those plum jobs, too.
Yeah. They've been so...
I would say this. I think of the two, USC is the more prime job than LSU is, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, you don't know, the Les Miles has started the dominoes. Now we'll see how they all fall.
Yeah. I mean, you see it all the time when one of these coaches gets fired. A lot of these other schools are going to be waiting in the wings, waiting to bring him in.
Here's an interesting. Okay, just to throw him out there because I just looked at the top 25. How about Les Miles with the Miami Hurricanes? Now, granted, the Canes aren't looking for anybody, but I'm just saying it's an intriguing possibility.
I mean, they just got Mark Richt.
Okay, but all right, never mind then. Maybe not Miami. I'm just looking down the list here. I don't know. Mark Richt, though, I mean, again, okay.
But again, it's his first season. They're 3-0. They're doing okay.
Mm-hmm. I've seen this movie before.
Yeah. I think the other interesting thing now is who's going to take over that LSU job. And a lot of talk already, as of course it happens when you're the best outsider school. Tom Herman from Houston is already getting the buzz is that he's going to be LSU's top guy. Well, of course, he's going to be anybody's top guy if you're a power conference school. But I also think Houston is on the precipice of maybe joining the Big 12. That's not a terrible place to be.
No, but you got to remember too, recruiting. If it comes down to that, it's easier to recruit at LSU than it is at Houston.
Any final words before we head on our merry way?
Go Bucks, I guess.
Go Bucks, you guess. Go Rams.
Oh yeah, go Rams. I'm going to say go Rams too. Beat the Cardinals. Sorry, Mike.
And hey, don't say this too loud, everybody. But the Arizona State Sun Devils are 4-0.
Uh-oh. Look out.
Look out. They're number 26 in the country.
And I just want to throw this in, too. I told you this before the show. The Northern Illinois Huskies are 0-4 this year. My Toledo Rockets are 3-0. Could this be the year? We'll see.
We will see.
All right.
For Greg, I'm Zach. This is basically a football show. Enjoy the full weekend of football.
Thanks for listening to Basically a Football Show. Tune in next week for more heart-stopping, helmet-cracking, concussion-inducing, suspension-fighting, spouse-beating, child-whipping, commissioner-lying. Ugh. That got depressing quickly.